The ship appeared without warning. One moment the space near Jupiter was empty and cold. The next moment something massive blocked out the stars. Scientists on Earth saw it first through their telescopes. They did not believe what they were seeing. The object was bigger than any moon. It was a ship, a warship, and it was not from Earth. Within hours, every government on the planet knew. Within days, the world changed forever. The message came through every radio, every television, every phone on Earth. The voice was cold and mechanical, translated into every human language at once. You have been discovered. Present yourselves for integration or face annihilation. You have 7 days. That was all. No explanation, no negotiation, just a command. The United Earth Council gathered in Geneva. Presidents, prime ministers, generals, and scientists filled the Great Hall. They argued for 3 days straight. Some wanted to surrender immediately. They said humanity had no chance against a civilization that could build ships the size of moons. Others wanted to fight. They said humanity should launch every nuclear weapon at the alien ship and hope for the best. But there was a third option. A small group suggested sending a diplomatic mission. They would meet these aliens face to face. They would talk. They would learn. And maybe, just maybe, they would find a way to survive. Captain Park was not a diplomat. He was a soldier who had become an explorer. For 20 years, he had served in the military. For 10 more years, he had commanded Earth's first deep space missions. He was 53 years old with gray hair and tired eyes, but those eyes were sharp, and they never looked away from danger. When the council asked for volunteers to meet the aliens, Park stepped forward before anyone else could speak. "I will go," he said simply. The council gave him a ship called the Resolve. It was humanity's only vessel capable of traveling between stars. Compared to the alien warship, it was like a small fish swimming toward a whale, but Park did not care about size. He cared about his mission. He chose his crew carefully. He needed people who would not panic. He needed people who could think clearly when everything was falling apart. Lieutenant was his first choice. She was 31 years old and had served as a tactical officer for 8 years. She was small in height but large in spirit. Her mind worked faster than any computer when lives were at stake. Some people called her cold. Park knew better. She was not cold, she was focused. Dr. Hen came next. He was the ship's medical officer and also an expert in alien biology. He had spent his whole career preparing for this moment, the moment when humanity would meet life from another world. He was gentle and kind, with soft hands and a softer voice. But Park had seen him work under pressure. When things went wrong, Han became like stone. Nothing could shake him. Engineer was a practical man. He did not care about politics or diplomacy. He cared about machines. He could fix anything with enough time and the right tools. He was 45 years old and had built half the systems on the Resolve with his own hands. If the ship broke down, would keep it running. Park trusted him completely. The last crew member was the youngest. Specialist was only 26 years old. She was an expert in languages and communication. She had learned 12 Earth languages before she turned 20. Now she would try to learn an alien one. She was nervous. Park could see her hands shaking when she came aboard, but she did not run away. That was enough for him. On the day of departure, billions of people watched the Resolve leave Earth. Some prayed. Some cried. Some simply stared at their screens in silence. No one knew if they would ever see the ship again. The journey to the alien vessel took 4 days. As they traveled, they studied everything they could about the warship. Their sensors struggled to understand what they were seeing. The ship was not just big, it was impossibly big. It had weapons that could destroy planets. It had shields that could stop anything humanity might throw at it. "We are like ants walking into the home of giants," said quietly. "Then we will be very polite ants," Park replied, "but we will not crawl." On the 5th day, they received docking instructions. The alien ship opened a small door, small compared to the rest of the vessel, but still large enough to swallow the resolve 10 times over. They flew inside. What they saw took their breath away. The interior of the ship was like a city. Thousands of smaller vessels moved through the air. Strange creatures walked on platforms and bridges that stretched in every direction. Lights of every color filled the vast space. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. A voice guided them to a landing platform. When the Resolve touched down, Park gathered his crew near the exit door. "Listen to me carefully," he said. "We do not know what will happen out there. We do not know if they will be friendly or hostile, but I know one thing. We are the representatives of Earth. We carry the hopes of every human being with us." He looked at each of them, and saw no fear in their eyes, only determination. "We do not kneel," Park continued. "We do not beg, we do not cry or plead. We walk in there as equals, or we do not walk in at all. Whatever they do to us, we face it standing tall. Is that understood?" "Yes, Captain," they answered together. The door opened. Warm air rushed in, carrying strange smells that no human had ever experienced before. Alien guards waited outside, tall creatures with blue skin and 4 arms, holding weapons that hummed with energy. Park stepped out first. His boots made a loud sound on the metal floor. The guards watched him with eyes that showed no emotion. Behind him, his crew followed. 4 humans walking into the heart of an alien empire. 4 humans carrying the future of their entire species on their shoulders. They did not know it yet, but they were about to shake the foundations of a civilization that had stood for 10,000 years. The guards led them through long corridors. Other aliens stopped to stare. Some looked curious. Some looked disgusted. Some looked at the humans the way a person might look at insects, small, unimportant, easy to crush. Park ignored them all. He walked with his head high and his back straight. At the end of the corridor, massive doors waited. They were made of black metal and covered with strange symbols. 2 guards stood on each side, holding weapons that glowed with red light. "The Hall of Submission," one guard said. "Enter and present yourselves to the Grand Overlord." Park did not hesitate. He walked forward and the doors opened before him. Whatever waited inside, humanity would face it without fear. The Hall of Submission was the largest room Park had ever seen. It stretched so far that he could not see the walls on either side. The ceiling was so high that clouds actually formed near the top, drifting slowly in the warm air. But what caught his attention were the statues. Hundreds of statues lined the hall, each one as tall as a building. They showed different creatures, some with scales, some with fur, some with shapes that made no sense to human eyes. But every statue had one thing in common. The creatures were kneeling. Their heads were bowed. Their hands were raised in surrender. "The conquered," whispered beside him. "These are all the species they have defeated." Park counted as they walked. He stopped at 47, 47 civilizations, 47 worlds, all brought to their knees in this very hall. At the far end of the chamber, a throne waited. It was made of black crystal that seemed to drink in the light around it. Sitting on that throne was the oldest creature Park had ever seen. Grand Overlord was thin and pale, with skin that looked like dry paper. His eyes were completely black, like 2 holes leading into endless darkness. He wore robes of deep purple, decorated with symbols that probably meant power and victory. Around his thin neck hung chains of gold, each one holding a small stone. Park guessed each stone came from a conquered world. Did not move as the humans approached. He did not need to move. Everything in the room already belonged to him. Standing beside the throne was another alien. This one was different, younger, stronger, built like a warrior. His skin was dark gray, and his muscles were visible even through his armor. A long scar ran across his face, from his forehead to his chin. His eyes burned with a cold fire. This was High Commander, the leader of all Dominion military forces. He had personally crushed 12 rebellions. He had burned 3 planets to ash. He was fear made flesh. Other aliens filled the hall as well. Hundreds of them, dignitaries, officials, representatives of the conquered species. They all watched the humans with different expressions. Some showed curiosity, some showed pity, most showed nothing at all. The humans stopped 20 feet from the throne. The guards stepped back, leaving them alone in the center of the hall. For a long moment, no one spoke, studied the humans like a scientist studying small animals. Then slowly, his thin lips curved into a smile. "So," he said, his voice echoing through the massive chamber, "these are the creatures from the small blue world, the ones who call themselves human." He said the word like it tasted bad in his mouth. "I am Captain Park of Earth. These are—" Silence did not raise his voice, but the word cut through the air like a knife. "You do not speak until spoken to. That is the first lesson of integration." Park stopped talking, but he did not bow his head. He kept his eyes fixed on the Grand Overlord. Waved one thin hand. "Let us begin. Kneel before me, representatives of Earth. Accept your place in the Dominion. Your world will be added to our empire. Your people will serve. Your resources will become ours. This is the way. This is how it has always been. Kneel." The last word hung in the air. Park did not move. Behind him, his crew did not move. The silence stretched on. 1 second, 2 seconds, 5 seconds, 10. Smile faded. His black eyes narrowed. "Perhaps you did not understand," he said slowly. "Every species that stands where you stand has knelt. Every single one. The knelt. The knelt. The pale lords of the seventh ring knelt. Species older than your entire solar system knelt before this throne. What makes you think you are different?" Park took a breath. His heart was beating fast, but his voice came out steady. "We are human," he said simply. "We do not kneel." The reaction was immediate. Gasps filled the hall. Some aliens stepped back as if Park had pulled out a weapon. Others leaned forward, suddenly interested in what would happen next. High Commander drew his blade. It was a long weapon, curved and sharp, humming with energy. He stepped forward, his eyes locked on Park. "Give me the word," my lord said. "I will show them what happens to those who refuse." But raised one hand, stopping him. The Grand Overlord was no longer smiling. He was no longer frowning either. His face showed something new, curiosity. "Interesting," said quietly. "Most species beg for mercy by now. Others threaten and curse, but you simply refuse, as if you have a choice." "Everyone has a choice," Park replied. "That is something we believe very strongly." Laughed. It was a dry, empty sound, like wind blowing through dead leaves. "Choice," he repeated. "How delightful, how naive. Let me explain something to you, human. The Dominion has existed for 10,000 years. We have conquered 47 species. Not one has ever successfully resisted us. Not one. Some fought back. They died. Some tried to run. We found them. Some tried to hide. We burned their hiding places. In the end, every single one knelt. Every single one." He leaned forward on his throne. "You are not special. Your world is not special. Your species is not special. You are simply the 48th addition to our empire. Nothing more." Park felt shift beside him. He felt the tension in his crew, but no one broke. No one looked away. No one knelt. "Perhaps we will be the first," Park said. The words were simple, but they hit the room like a bomb. Even seemed surprised. For just a moment his mask of control slipped and something flickered in those dark eyes. Was it anger, fear, respect? It was gone before Park could identify it. "The first," repeated softly. "Do you understand what you are saying? I could destroy your world with a single command. Every man, woman, and child would die. Your cities would burn. Your oceans would boil. Your species would become nothing but ash floating in space." "Yes," Park said, "I understand." "And you still refuse to kneel?" "Yes." Sat back on his throne. He stared at Park for a long time. The entire hall waited in silence. Finally, the Grand Overlord spoke again. There is an ancient tradition in the Dominion. When a species refuses integration, they are given one chance to prove their worth. It is called the Trial of Flames. Made a sound of disgust. My lord, they are not worthy of the trial. Let me simply execute them and send a fleet to destroy their world. Patience, Commander, did not look at. His eyes stayed fixed on Park. The Trial of Flames is a combat ritual. Your species will choose one champion. My species will choose one champion. They will fight. If your champion wins, humanity will earn the right to negotiate. If your champion loses, your world burns. There are no other options. Park considered this. It was not a fair offer. It was barely an offer at all, but it was more than extinction. I accept, he said. Very well, finally smiled again. Choose your champion. The trial begins tomorrow. Park turned to look at his crew. Was strong but not a fighter. Han was brave but not trained for combat. Was too young. That left only one option. Met his eyes and nodded once. Lieutenant will be our champion, Park announced. Laughed out loud. A female, a small female, this is your best warrior. Did not react. She stood perfectly still, her face calm, her eyes cold. Silenced with a gesture. The choice is made. Tomorrow your lieutenant will face our champion in the arena. If she dies, your world dies with her. Sleep well, humans. It may be your last night alive. The guard stepped forward to escort them away. As Park walked past the statues of kneeling aliens, he made a silent promise. Humanity would not be the 48th statue. Not today, not ever. The arena was built for death. It was a massive circular pit, surrounded by seats that rose up like mountains on all sides. Millions of aliens filled those seats. More watched through screens across the galaxy. For the first time in 300 years, the Trial of Flames would be held. Every citizen of the Dominion wanted to see it. Stood at the entrance to the arena, looking out at the sea of faces. The noise was incredible, roaring, screaming, stamping feet. Most of the crowd was cheering against her. They wanted to see the human die. They wanted entertainment. Behind her, Park placed a hand on her shoulder. You do not have to do this, he said quietly. We can find another way. Shook her head. There is no other way, we both know that. She was wearing simple combat clothes, a tight black suit that allowed her to move freely. In her right hand, she held her only weapon, a combat knife. The blade was 6 inches long. It was the same knife she had carried for 8 years. I have been fighting my whole life, continued. Fighting to prove myself, fighting to be taken seriously, fighting to survive. This is just one more fight. Park squeezed her shoulder. Come back to us. I will try. The gates opened, walked into the arena. The crowd exploded with noise. Some aliens threw objects at her, food, trash, things she could not identify. She ignored them all. She walked to the center of the arena and stood perfectly still, waiting. On the other side of the arena, another gate opened. The creature that emerged was a nightmare. His name was, he stood 7 feet tall and weighed at least 400 pounds. His body was covered in thick gray scales that looked harder than stone. His arms were as thick as tree trunks. His hands ended in claws that could tear through metal. He had won 300 consecutive battles in this arena. He had killed warriors from 12 different species. He was undefeated. Walked toward slowly. He was in no hurry. He had already won this fight in his mind. The human female was small, weak, and armed with nothing but a tiny knife. This would not be a battle. It would be an execution. He stopped 10 feet away from her and smiled. His teeth were sharp and yellow. Little human, he said, his voice like stones grinding together. I will make this quick. I am not cruel. Did not answer. She shifted her weight slightly, adjusting her stance. In the special viewing box above the arena, Grand Overlord watched with interest. High Commander sat beside him, looking bored. Ambassador, a female alien with silver skin and gentle eyes, leaned forward with concern. "This is wrong," said softly. "She has no chance." "That is the point," replied with a cold smile. "After kills her, we will destroy their world. The Dominion will have a new trophy. Everything will return to normal." Captain Park stood at the edge of the box, his hands gripping the railing. Dr. Hand stood beside him, medical supplies ready, and watched in silence, barely breathing. A horn sounded. The fight began. Charged. He moved faster than something his size should be able to move. One moment he was standing still. The next moment he was swinging his massive arm at its head. She ducked. The blow passed over her, close enough to disturb her hair. Before could recover, she darted to his side and slashed with her knife. The blade scraped against his scales and bounced off without leaving a mark. Laughed. "Your weapon cannot hurt me, little one. My skin has stopped plasma rifles. What did you think a knife would do?" He swung again. This time was not fast enough. His fist caught her in the ribs and sent her flying across the arena. She hit the ground hard, rolling several times before stopping. Pain exploded through her chest. At least 2 ribs were broken, maybe more. She gasped for air, struggling to breathe. The crowd cheered. They wanted blood. Forced herself to stand. Her left side was on fire, every breath hurt, but she stood anyway. Watched her with surprise. "You are still alive, good. I was worried this would be too easy." He attacked again, faster this time. Tried to dodge, but her injured ribs slowed her down. His claws caught her arm, slicing through flesh. Blood sprayed across the sand. She stumbled back, pressing her good hand against the wound. Blood poured between her fingers. The cut was deep. She could see bone. In the viewing box, Hand grabbed Park's arm. "Captain, she cannot continue. She will die." Park did not answer. His eyes never left. Circled her slowly, enjoying the moment. "Surrender," he said. "Get on your knees and beg for mercy. Perhaps I will kill you quickly." Looked up at him. Blood covered half her face. Her arm hung uselessly at her side. She could barely breathe through her broken ribs. By every measure, she had already lost. She smiled. "Humans," she said through bloody teeth, "do not kneel." She attacked. Was not expecting it. He raised his arms to block, but was not aiming for his body. She dove low, sliding across the sand, and slashed at the back of his leg. Her knife found a gap in his scales, the thin skin behind his knee. He roared in pain and stumbled. For the first time in 300 battles, felt his own blood. The crowd went silent. Rolled away before he could grab her. She was on her feet again, circling, watching. She had learned something important. The scales were not perfect. There were gaps. She just had to find them. Was angry now. He stopped playing with her and started fighting for real. His attacks became faster and more violent. He hit her again and again, in the shoulder, in the leg, across the face. Each blow would have killed a normal person. But was not normal. Every time she fell, she got up. Every time he knocked her down, she stood again. She was bleeding from a dozen wounds. Her left hand was broken. Her vision was blurring, but she kept fighting. The crowd's cheering changed. They were no longer laughing at her. They were watching in stunned silence as this tiny creature refused to die. Leaned forward on his throne, his black eyes wide. Smile had faded. "Impossible," he whispered. "She should be dead." Was crying. "She is magnificent," she said. "I have never seen anything like this." Park watched with tears running down his face. He understood what was doing. She was not trying to overpower, she was waiting, learning. Every attack taught her something. Every blow she survived brought her closer to victory. Was getting tired. He was not used to fights lasting this long. His movements became slower, sloppier. Frustration clouded his judgment. "Why will you not die?" he screamed. "Why do you keep getting up?" Did not answer. She was saving her breath. She was saving her strength. She was waiting for one perfect moment. It came. raised both arms for a killing blow, putting all his strength into one final attack. For just 1 second his neck was exposed. The scales there were thinner. The gap between them was wider. Moved. She used the last of her energy to dodge his blow. She stepped inside his guard. She jumped higher than she had ever jumped before. And she drove her knife into his throat. The blade went deep, finding the soft flesh beneath his scales. Blood, alien blood, purple and thick, poured out around the knife. Staggered backward, his eyes wide with shock. He fell. The ground shook when his body hit the sand. He twitched once, twice, and then lay still. Silence. Complete, absolute silence filled the arena. Millions of aliens stared at the impossible scene before them. A 7-foot warrior lay dead on the ground. A small human female stood over him, covered in blood, her own and his, barely able to stand. Looked up at the crowd. She looked at the viewing box where and sat frozen in disbelief. "Humans," she said, loud enough for every microphone to pick up, "do not stay down." Then she collapsed. The arena erupted into chaos. Some aliens were cheering, some were screaming, some were trying to leave. Guards rushed onto the sand. Han was already running toward his medical kit in hand. In the viewing box, Grand Overlord stood for the first time. His ancient face showed an emotion no one had ever seen there before. Fear. For the first time in 10,000 years, a species had won the trial of flames. For the first time ever, the Dominion did not know what would happen next. The humans had proven themselves. Now everything would change. 3 days had passed since the trial of flames. Lay in the medical bay of the Resolve, floating in and out of consciousness. Dr. Han had not slept since the fight. He had repaired her broken ribs, stitched her wounds, and set her broken hand. She would live, but she needed time to heal. Outside the ship, the Dominion was in chaos. News of the trial had spread across the galaxy like fire. For the first time in history, an inferior species had defeated a Dominion champion. Aliens who had spent their whole lives believing the Dominion was unbeatable were now asking questions. If a small human female could kill, what else was possible? Captain Park sat in his quarters, waiting for word from the Grand Overlord. According to tradition, humanity had earned the right to negotiate. They had proven their worth in combat. Now they should be treated as something more than slaves. But Park knew better than to trust tradition. He was right to be worried. In the depths of the Dominion flagship, High Commander was planning his revenge. "This is unacceptable," growled, packing back and forth in his war room. "A human killed a human. The entire galaxy saw it. The Dominion looks weak. I look weak." His officers watched in silence. No one dared to speak. "The Grand Overlord wants to negotiate," continued. "He thinks these humans have proven themselves. He is wrong. They got lucky. One lucky blow, one lucky moment, and now everyone thinks they are special." He stopped packing and turned to face his officers. "I will not allow it. The humans must be destroyed. Their world must burn. Only then will the galaxy remember that the Dominion is not to be challenged." One officer raised his hand nervously. "Sir, the Grand Overlord has ordered us to stand down if we attack Earth without his permission." "The Grand Overlord is old," interrupted. "He has forgotten what made the Dominion strong. Fear, terror, the knowledge that resistance means death. If he will not do what is necessary, I will." He pressed a button on his console. A star map appeared, showing a small blue planet in a distant corner of the galaxy. "I am taking the Second Fleet to Earth, 200 warships. We will destroy every city, every ship, every living thing on that world. By the time the Grand Overlord learns what happened, it will be too late." "Sir," another officer said carefully, "this could be considered treason." Smiled coldly. "It is not treason if I am saving the Dominion. The Grand Overlord will understand, and if he does not, Well, perhaps it is time for new leadership anyway. He gave the order. Within hours, 200 Dominion warships were moving toward Earth. They would arrive in 3 days. No one on Earth knew they were coming. But someone else found out. Ambassador had never broken a rule in her life. She was a diplomat, a peacemaker, a believer in proper procedures. But what was planning was murder, the murder of an entire species. She could not stay silent. She came to the resolve in secret, wearing a cloak to hide her silver skin. "Captain Park," she said, her voice trembling, "you must listen to me. You are all in terrible danger." Park brought her inside and listened as she explained everything. Plan, the Second Fleet, the 3-day deadline. When she finished, Park was silent for a long moment. "Can you stop him?" he finally asked. "Can the Grand Overlord recall the fleet?" Shook her head. "By the time he learns what has happened, it will be too late. Has disabled long-range communications in this sector. No message will reach the Grand Overlord for at least 2 days. Then we have to warn Earth ourselves." His eyes widened. "Captain, your ship cannot outrun the fleet. They will arrive before you." Park stood up. "Then we will have to find another way." He called his crew together in the ship's main room. Engineer, specialist, and doctor hand-gathered around the central table. Listened through the medical bay speakers, too weak to move but still conscious. "A fleet of 200 warships is heading for Earth," Park said simply. "They will destroy everything. We have 3 days to stop them." The silence was heavy. Hal asked, "We cannot fight them. We cannot outrun them. We have no weapons that can scratch a Dominion warship." "But we can warn Earth," said. "If we get there first, if we give them time to prepare." "Prepare for what?" interrupted. "Earth's military is nothing compared to the Dominion. Even if we warn them, what can they do?" "Fight," Park said. "They can fight. They can make the Dominion pay for every inch of ground. They can show the galaxy that humans do not go quietly." Han rubbed his tired eyes. "Captain, I want to believe you, but even if we could get to Earth before the fleet, how do we do that? Our fastest speed is half of theirs." Was quiet. He was staring at his hands, thinking. "There might be a way," he said slowly. Everyone turned to look at him. "The engines on this ship," continued, "they were built for safety. They have limiters that prevent them from going too fast. If we remove those limiters and overload the power core, we could create a short-range jump, a rip through space." "I have never heard of such a thing," said. "Because no one has ever tried it. The mathematics say it is possible. The jump would be unstable, dangerous. We might tear ourselves apart, but if it works, we could reach Earth hours before the fleet." Park leaned forward. "What are our chances?" Hesitated. "Maybe 12%, maybe less." "Those are not good odds," Han said. "No," Park agreed. "But what is the alternative? We fly home at normal speed and arrive just in time to watch everyone we love die. We hide here and pretend nothing happened. We surrender and hope shows mercy." No one answered. 12% is not zero," Park said. "It is a chance, and sometimes a chance is all you need." From the medical bay, his voice came through the speakers. It was weak but steady. "Do it, get us home." Park nodded. "You heard her, make the modifications. Send a message to Earth, tell them everything in case we do not survive. Han, prepare the medical bay for injuries. We leave in 2 hours." The crew moved quickly. There was no time for fear, no time for doubt. Ambassador watched them work with wonder in her eyes. "You know this might kill you all." "Yes," Park said. "And you are doing it anyway." "Yes." "Why?" Park thought about the question. He thought about Earth, his home, his family, the billions of people who had no idea what was coming. He thought about in the medical bay who had nearly died to give humanity a chance. He thought about what it meant to be human. "Because that is who we are," he said finally. "We do not abandon our own. We do not give up when things seem impossible. We try, we fight, we hope, even when hope seems foolish. Stared at him for a long moment. Then she did something that surprised them both. She bowed. "I think I understand now," she said softly. "I think I understand why my people fear you." 2 hours later, the Resolve tore itself free from the Dominion flagship and pointed toward the stars. Inside, 4 humans and 1 alien doctor strapped themselves in. His hands moved across the controls. "Overloading the power core now. Jump in 10 seconds." Park closed his eyes. He thought of Earth, he thought of home. 5 seconds. The ship began to shake. Warning lights flashed everywhere. The engines screamed. "Jumping now." Reality twisted. Light became darkness. Sound became silence. And then the Resolve disappeared into the void, racing toward Earth, racing toward the future, racing toward whatever would come next. The Resolve emerged from the jump in flames. Half the ship was burning. The engines were dead. Life support was failing. Smoke filled every corridor and warning alarms screamed so loud that Park could barely think. But they had made it. Through the broken he could see Earth, blue and green and beautiful, home. "Report," he croaked, coughing through the smoke. His voice came through the speakers, weak but alive. "Engines are completely destroyed. We have maybe 30 minutes of power left. Hull breaches on decks 2 through 4. Casualties. Has a broken leg. Han is unconscious but breathing." Park's heart stopped. "She is alive, barely. The jump reopened her wounds. Han was treating her when he got knocked out." Park closed his eyes for just a second. Then he opened them again. There was no time for grief, no time for fear, only the mission. "Can you send a transmission to Earth?" "The equipment is damaged, but I can try." "Do it. Tell them everything. Tell them the fleet is coming. Tell them they have 17 minutes to prepare." 17 minutes, sounded horrified. "Captain, that is not enough time." "It will have to be." Park pulled himself out of his chair and stumbled to the communication station. Was already there, working through the pain of her broken leg. Her fingers flew across the damaged controls, rerouting power, bypassing broken systems. "I have a signal," she said, "broadcasting on all frequencies." Park grabbed the microphone. His voice was raw and tired, but it carried across the void. "This is Captain Park of the Resolve to all nations of Earth. A Dominion fleet of 200 warships is approaching. They will arrive in 17 minutes. Their goal is total destruction. Every city, every ship, every human being on this planet." He paused to catch his breath. "I know 17 minutes is not enough time. I know we cannot win this fight. But I am asking you, all of you, to fight anyway. Not because we can win, but because we cannot surrender. Not because we are strong, but because we refuse to be weak. This is our home. This is our world. If we are going to die, let us die standing." He released the microphone and waited. On Earth, chaos erupted. Every government received the message simultaneously. Every military base went to full alert. Every leader faced the same impossible choice: panic or act. In Washington, the president watched the sky turn dark. In Beijing, generals mobilized forces that had never worked together. In Moscow, old enemies set aside grudges that had lasted generations. In dozens of countries across the world, people who had spent their whole lives fighting each other suddenly found themselves on the same side. There was no time for meetings or debates or procedures. There was only action. Nuclear missiles were and aimed at the sky. Satellites were converted into weapons. Every ship that could fly was launched into orbit. Fighter jets took off by the thousands, even though their pilots knew they would be hopelessly outmatched. Civilians did not hide. They worked. Factories that made cars started making ammunition. Hospitals prepared for mass casualties. Ordinary people helped in whatever way they could. A grandmother in Seoul loaded supplies onto a military truck. A teenager in London helped encrypt communication signals. A farmer in Brazil guided his neighbors to underground shelters. For the first time in human history, there was no East or West, no rich or poor, no us or them. There was only humanity, 7 billion people united against extinction. 17 minutes passed in what felt like seconds. And then the Dominion arrived. 200 warships dropped out of hyperspace like an ocean of metal and fire. Each one was the size of a city. Each one carried enough weapons to destroy a continent. Together, they blotted out the sun. High Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking down at Earth with disgust. "Such a small world," he said. "This will be over quickly. All ships prepare to fire." Then he saw something that made him pause. The humans were not hiding. A fleet of ships, tiny, primitive things compared to his warships, was rising to meet him. Thousands of them, more than he had expected. They were armed with weapons that could barely scratch his shields, flying vessels that would crumble at the first hit. But they were coming anyway. Laughed, foolish creatures. They actually think they can fight us. "Sir," one of his officers reported, "we are detecting weapons signatures from the planet's surface. Nuclear devices, several thousand of them." "Nuclear weapons," was amused. "Those are primitive technology. Our shields will stop them easily." "Yes, sir, but there are a lot of them." The first wave of nuclear missiles hit the Dominion fleet. Most were stopped by shields, but a few got through, targeted at sensors, at communication arrays, at the gaps between ships. Explosions lit up the sky. No major damage, but damage nonetheless. "Stop laughing. Return fire," he ordered. "Destroy their cities." The Dominion fleet opened fire. Beams of pure energy lanced down toward Earth, burning through the atmosphere. Cities exploded. Millions died in seconds. But the humans did not stop fighting. Ships flew directly into Dominion weapons arrays, sacrificing themselves to take out enemy systems. Pilots ejected just before impact, watching their vessels become bombs. Ground forces launched wave after wave of missiles, even as fire rained down around them. The battle lasted 6 hours. 6 hours of hell, 6 hours of death, 6 hours of impossible courage. Earth's fleet was destroyed. Most of the world's major cities were burning. The death toll climbed into the hundreds of millions. By any measure, humanity was losing. But the Dominion was not unscathed. 43 warships were destroyed or crippled. Its flagship had taken damage to its main engines. Thousands of Dominion soldiers were dead. The fleet that was supposed to crush Earth in minutes was now fighting for hours against an enemy that refused to die. From the wreckage of the Resolve, now floating in orbit with its last bits of power, Park watched the battle through a crack. Beside him had crawled from the medical bay. She was pale and weak, bleeding through her bandages, but she refused to look away. "We are losing," she said quietly. "Yes," Park agreed. "But we are not broken." "No, we are not." On his flagship, stared at his tactical display with disbelief. Another warship had just been rammed by 3 human fighters flying in formation. Another weapon array had been destroyed by a suicide bomber. "Why?" he screamed, slamming his fist against the console. "Why will they not stop? Why do they keep fighting? They cannot win. Do they not understand that they cannot win?" His officers had no answer. Opened a communication channel to Earth, to the survivors, to whoever was left listening. "You are defeated," he shouted. "Your cities are burning, your military is destroyed, billions of your people are dead. Why are you still fighting? Why will you not break?" For a long moment, there was no response. Then a voice came through the speakers. It was Dr. Han, now awake and coordinating medical efforts from the Resolve's broken communication system. "You want to know why we keep fighting?" Han said. His voice was tired but steady. "Because that is what we do. We are human. We have been fighting since we were born, fighting against nature, fighting against disease, fighting against our own failures. We have lost before. We will lose again, but we have never stopped trying." He paused. "You can kill us. You can burn our world. You can wipe us from the galaxy, but you cannot break us, because we never learned how to break. It is simply not in our nature." Had no response. Around him, his bridge crew shifted uncomfortably. They had conquered 47 species. They had crushed rebellions and burned worlds, but they had never faced anything like this. For the first time in his long career, High Commander felt something he had never felt before. Doubt. And far away, beyond the battlefield, beyond the burning ships and dying soldiers, a massive vessel dropped out of hyperspace. It was the personal flagship of Grand Overlord, and it was not alone. The main Dominion armada had arrived. But they had not come to finish the job. They had come to bear witness.